mind. All right, let's get to it. So again, if you have questions, contact me at adrian@aehelp.com. Hi, Amrit. I think we have a good number for Dovs, Zainab, Roshni. Yep, we have lots of members in now. That's great. Again, members, today is a question and answer session. So this is your chance to ask me questions about the IELTS exam. And we will look at the different parts of the exam. Amrit, you got an overall score of 6.5. That's quite good, okay? You need 7.5, so you're getting there, okay? Going from a 6.5 to 7.5 is maybe a little bit easier than from a 5 or a 5.5 to a 6.5, so you're on the right track, Amrit. Okay, 6.5 is a solid score, all right? Okay, so again, the materials come from our websites, aehelp.com, GIELTS help.com, and this is a question and answer session. And a couple weeks ago, we did the question and answer session, and we talked about just kind of general questions about the exam. Now I would like to focus on specific sections, okay? So let's start with the listening section. Let's talk about that. Just go ahead, members, and ask me any question about the listening section. While you think about questions for the listening section, I'll talk about one that I know many students ask. One of the common questions we get is, can I write with all capital or uppercase letters for the answers? That's a very common question. Okay, the answer to that is yes, you can. Okay, yes, you can. You can use all uppercase letters for the listening section. Okay, so if I hop over to our curriculum test, I'll talk to you about this in a moment, and you have a question like this one where it says, write no more than 3 words and or a number for each answer, and it says Stephen, and the name, they spell it out as Trammell, so of course it's a proper noun, so you can spell it as Trammell, like that, or you could write it like this as well. Okay, both of these are okay, but if you write a small t, then it's wrong. Okay, so some students like to be safe and use all uppercase for their answers in the listening section, which is fine. That works. Just be careful because it's easier to make spelling mistakes when you use all capital letters. So be really, really careful about that. Okay, I see some questions coming up. I'll get to those in a minute. So just an important piece of advice. Be careful when writing using all capital letters, as it is A, slower, and B, easier to make spelling mistakes. Okay, so one kind of trick that you can do for the listening section, okay, this is a bit of a trick, is write your answers in all lowercase during the listening and transfer the answers in the last 10 minutes in all uppercase. Okay, does that make sense, what I just told you there? So that's a neat little trick. So basically what that means is when you are putting your answer, this is of course for the paper-based test. So if you're writing your answer in all lowercase, so you write Trammell like this, so that you can write faster and with better spelling. And then in the 10 minutes, when you can transfer your answers to the answer sheet, then you transfer it with all uppercase. So just again, be really careful to make sure that your spelling stays the same. Okay? Amrit says, oh, that's very useful. And Roshni says, yeah, I do that. So great, Roshni, you already practiced that. That's fantastic. Okay? Great. So yeah, again, just make sure to do that. All right? Okay, let's see. Some questions have come up. Rahul K says, sir, sometimes I miss one question answer and then almost miss 2 to 3 questions downward too. So Rahul, I think your question there is, what should I do if I miss some questions in the listening? Okay. Well, Roshni, that's where you have to be very careful with your timing. So you have to pay attention to some key indicators or key markers in the listening. Okay, so I'm going to put your question up here, Roshni. So, or sorry, Rahul. Rahul K is saying, sometimes I miss questions and answers, so what should I do? Okay, this is your question, Rahul. What should I do if I miss a question in the listening so I don't miss more? Right? That's your actual question. Let me give you an example. So let's say that you have your listening and you're listening to the audio for these questions. Okay. And you miss number 4. So you probably won't. It's an easy one, but just let's imagine that you miss number 4. So postcode number 4, you missed the postal code, and now you're worried that you're going to miss the next question as well. What's really important, Rahul, is that you keep a couple of key pieces of information in mind. So sometimes when students have this kind of question, they don't pay attention to this because it's given. So they're like, oh, whatever, I'll just skip it. Okay? So they're only paying attention to the questions. They're not paying attention to given information. But given information, Rahul, is exactly what can help you to not miss more questions. Because if you're listening for the postcode and you hear the word September, then you know you've missed this one. And then you just forget about it, maybe take a guess at the end, and you move on. Okay? Or if you hear phone number, contact number, you know that you've moved past this in the audio because the audio is linear. Okay? So make sure, Rahul, that when you're reviewing in the review time for the listening questions, do pay attention to the given information so you know where the audio is. Does that make sense, Rahul? Even if you're not, paying attention to all of the details, like 8th of September, 1996, just at least the word September or contact number. Okay? So make sure to identify easy, I call them easy auditory markers in the questions so you know where the audio is. For example, months like September. Okay, so when you hear September, you know that you might have to move on. Okay? Rahul says, or can I monitor 2 questions at a time? Yes, but that might be a little bit tricky because the next one might be much later, Rahul. So within one set, certainly, that's a good idea. Just be careful because if you're monitoring 2 questions, there might be quite some space between them. So here, they're close. So you can listen for Stephen and postcode. Okay? But again, it's very dangerous to completely avoid this piece of information. Now, when you're here, this answer is coming much later. So you might have a little bit of difficulty monitoring both the earlier and this much later question at the same time. So careful with that. Okay. Amrit, I think that's, so just send me that question in email because that's about writing. We're still focusing on the listening section. Okay. All right. Any more questions about the listening section? And of course, if you miss a question, don't worry about it. That's another really important advice. If you miss a question in the listening, forget about it and move on. Okay? Most students do that, but still I see students worry a little bit too much about questions they miss. Okay, Amreen. All right. Hung says, what should I do to improve synonym words for listening? Hung, that's a very good question. Okay, so Hung is basically asking, well, as we most of us know, IELTS uses paraphrasing for the questions. Let me just move something a little bit later on. Go to another part here. Here we go. By the way, students, I'm using the curriculum exam right now to show you these examples. The curriculum exam is an expanded version of the IELTS that has many more questions to show you different kinds of question types. So Hung says, well, look, I know they use paraphrasing for the IELTS exam. It means they say different words in the audio than what you see in the questions. So I need synonyms, I need paraphrasing. Okay, Hung, you don't just need synonyms. You need antonym negatives. You need description as well. Okay, and expressions as well. So you need to concentrate on all of those. One way to practice that is go through listening sections and just paraphrase what you see. So what's another way to say manufacturers? Hi, Alvina. I see that you've joined in as well. Yes, you will have extra space, Alvina, in the writing section. Alvina, we're focusing on the listening section right now. Yeah, the builders. Okay, so the builders, sure. What's another way to say it? Producers, Rahul, it's okay. We probably wouldn't say that naturally, not for the Titanic. Not operator, Hung. Manufacturer is not an operator. There's another easy way to paraphrase manufacturer. You should always think about the easier ways. Yeah, exactly, Hung. Makers. Okay, the builders or the makers of the Titanic. What's another way to say believed? Constructors, Gurkharat, again, not natural. Okay, so producers, constructors, we wouldn't use it in this context. Makers, manufacturers, builders. Of the Titanic, believed, assumed, yep, sure. What's another way to say that? Yeah, Gurkharat, always focus on paraphrasing the right grammar as well, just like Alvina did. Okay, so thought. Okay, so Hung, to answer your question, how do I improve thinking about synonyms for the listening section? Okay, that was the original question here by Hung. So Hung is asking, how do I improve thinking about synonyms and other paraphrasing for the listening section so I can catch the answers? That is the $1,000,000 question, by the way, students. So that question, how do I improve thinking about synonyms and other paraphrasing for the listening section so I can catch the correct answer? That is the $1,000,000 question to get a high band score on the listening. Okay. So step number 1A, paraphrase the questions in the listening as much as possible before you listen. And of course, this is when you're practicing at home, right? So clearly you have to practice this at home because in the exam this is happening real time. So, all right. The next step is check the paraphrasing in the transcripts. Okay, so B is check the paraphrasing in the transcripts at the back of the book. Okay, so Hung, you should do this regularly when you're practicing at home. I'll show you what I mean. So we go back here. We did our own paraphrasing for a couple of the keywords in question 16. Okay, and then we listened to the audio. Maybe we were able to catch it. If we did, great. We can write down that paraphrasing. And then in the back of the book, I think it's about page 190, but I'll take a look here for us. Again, this is your curriculum exam, students. You should use this absolutely when you're studying. So all of our members have access to these exams. Oh yeah, the curriculum one's going to be at the very back of the book. Okay, just looking for our transcripts here. Just bear with me for a second. Okay, there it is. So, yeah, so here, this is on page 226 of your exam book on the website. So you can see here the transcripts. This is basically what the people are saying. Okay. Now, we'll look for that question number 16. Okay. All right. So, here it is. Let me zoom in. So the Titanic was an enormous ship. The makers called it unsinkable. So we got the first one. Notice how here you have the word the makers. Okay, and that's great. So Hung, if you have, thanks Amrit for that super chat donation. I'll check your question in just 1 second. Here we got this right, the word makers, okay? That's fantastic. That's exactly what you're going for. So Hung, if you match the word correctly with what you paraphrase, that means that your thinking is good and you will get more of those listening audios correct. You will understand them more. And instead of thought or believed, here it says called. So this is what's paraphrased as believed. Okay, so there, now you know that, okay, in English, in this context, you can paraphrase the word believed with called it, unsinkable. So unsinkable is the answer. Amrit, what are the advantages of buying our full course on the website? Simply put, you have access to the most advanced IELTS training, online training on the internet. With the, I'll show it to you real quick, Amrit. Okay, so this curriculum exam that I'm using right now to show you the listening section, it shows you all types of questions in the IELTS exam. So it has more than 40 questions for the listening and the reading. I think it has about 60 for each one to show you all the question types that you can see on the exam. On the website, when you log in, I'll show you what you get with the full course real quick, Amrit. I definitely appreciate your Super Chat donation to ask that question. Here, I'll show you what you get with it. So you log in, you click on that My Student account, and we're just releasing an app in August where you will have an app that fully integrates the website with the application. So you can go, Amrit, from your phone to your computer, from the application to the website, and you're logging into the same account. And then when you're in your My Student account, as a premium user, you have access to all of these interactive practice tests. So you see here, Amrit, that you have these time practice tests. These practice tests are basically the same as the computer-based version of the exam. So if you click on IELTS Test 1 quiz format, then it brings you right into the listening section for Test 1, and you hear the audio and you answer the questions. You can continue with where you left off, and then you just go through and do the exam. And of course it works on your phone or your tablet as well. So here, let me show you. So you can kind of see it there. You got the player, you can choose the answers. This one's a multiple choice question, then you can click next. And then of course, as Hung said, there's over 100 hours of videos, so there's lots and lots of video content. You can download the exams in PDF. You have all of the audio CDs. So there's lots and lots. There's about 150 to 200 hours of strategies and lessons in the premium course, which is great value for what it is. So again, thanks for asking that question. Was there something specific, Amrit, that you're looking for? There's also speaking and writing help as well in the premium course. Okay. Thanks, Amrit, for asking that again. Okay, so let's get back to the listening section question. So that was a really good question, Hung. I hope that answered that question for you. So you said, how can I improve for the listening section synonyms? Write down synonyms. If you don't know the synonyms, Hung, look it up in a thesaurus. Okay, so if you don't know synonyms, for words in the question, use a thesaurus, which is basically a synonym dictionary. Okay, Microsoft Word has that built in. All right. Okay, Roshni Kunte is asking a very good question. I think a lot of students have this question. So if I follow with the CD listening test, then I can't have time to read all of section 4, whole questions. I have to rush to read the questions. Yeah, Roshni, that's very true. Even as a native speaker, it's almost impossible to review all of the questions for section 4. Okay, so that's another really good question for the listening section. So here we go. Good question, Roshni. So I just can't review all of the questions for section 4 in listening. There's simply not enough time. What do I do? Okay, that's a very good question, Roshni. What do I do? Okay, the answer to that is look for key pieces of information. Okay, I'll show you what I mean to get an overall idea. So let's jump back here, and then we'll go to page 80, I believe. Here we go. Let's go to section 4. So I'm just moving around in our first exam book here. All right. So here's a section 4 listening set of questions, Roshni. So this one here, okay, it'll give you 20 seconds to try to review all of this information. Okay, so you have lots and lots of information here. And you don't have enough time to read it in that review time. You just simply don't. So what can you do? Okay, you're looking for key pieces of information. So choose the correct letters A, B, or C. Okay, don't worry about the instructions. The instruction you should know from practicing at home. So the key pieces of information are the questions in this case. Which event happened 65 million years ago? That's what you're focusing on, okay? Dinosaurs became extinct, Tyrannosaurus came into existence, Tyrannosaurus rex died out, a large asteroid hit the Earth. You probably won't have time to review all that, not in a way that you can actually understand it, okay? So you're focusing on the question, okay? Which event happened 65 million years ago? So you're focusing on events happening 65 million years ago when you listen, okay? Here you have Tyrannosaurus rex lived during which time? And then you have Jurassic, late Cretaceous, late Triassic. Again, you don't have time for this, so you're focusing on Tyrannosaurus rex lived during, okay, this part here. With multiple choice, you're always focusing on the question, not the answers. The answers often will just confuse you. Okay, now, this is the same with other types of questions as well. You're focusing on key pieces of information. So here is a fill in the blank. Okay. And here it says, the theory which explains why fossils are found in very different regions of the world is called. Now here, if I'm looking at this and I'm reviewing section 4, I'm really only focusing on this. The theory which explains is called. This is the subject. This is the question. I probably don't have enough time to try to read all of this and understand it, and it's not important. Okay? Now, of course, this is a skill that you have to practice at home. Okay? You have to practice it at home. So you have to practice identifying the most important details. In the English language, as you know, the basic sentence is subject plus verb plus object. Okay, that is your basic sentence. So a simple way to think about it is focus on that information, especially the subject, because this is what we are talking about. Okay, so if you identify the subject, the theory, then at least you have a starting point of what you're listening for. Does that make sense, Roshni? How to focus in on key information in section 4? That's exactly what I do when I run new practice IELTS exams on myself to see how they work, okay, for section 4. All right? So that's what you should do. Okay? So let's go back and I'll write up that answer so that you can remember it. What I'll do, members, as well, is I'll take the Q&A sessions and I'll put them into our community board. So so that you can review these later. Okay, so again, here's your question, Roshni. I just can't review all of the questions for section 4 in the listening. There's simply not enough time. What do I do? Look for key pieces of information to get an overall idea. Focus on the subject of questions. Remember that the main idea or concept is derived from the basic English sentence. Subject plus verb plus object. Okay, so keep that in mind. All right. Any other questions? Yeah, Gurkharat, that's right. You can even book a speaking session with me on our website. Yeah, you're definitely right. There's lots of help on those websites, students. The members know that because I know you surf the websites a bit for the information, so that's good. Roshni says, okay, they sometimes speak two answers, one right after the next, to confuse us. Yeah, Roshni, okay, there's a question there. That's another good one for the listening. Here's your question, Roshni. I'm going to take your statement and change that into a question because there is a smart question there, Roshni. You're basically saying the answers to questions come in what intervals? And that means like 5 seconds apart, 10 seconds apart. "20 seconds apart." So what's the kind of rule or the idea for the examiners, right? That's a good question, actually. And there's an interesting answer to that. Okay. The answers in section 1 and 2 are much more equidistant than section 3 and 4. Okay? In sections 3 and 4, the answers can be very close together or far apart. Okay? So generally, if you've done a few practice exams for the IELTS, you'll notice that in sections 1 and 2, I'll hop back to that, and I see, for Doves, that you have a question as well, so I'll get to it in a second. Okay. So in section 1, where you have these questions here, they'll be much more kind of equidistant. So you'll hear the answer for this 20 seconds after the audio starts. And then you'll hear this one 40 seconds after the audio starts. You'll hear this one 1 minute, maybe 5 seconds. So the distance between them is like 20 seconds, 25 seconds. So they're very equidistant. They're almost interval based, okay? So you can kind of feel the tempo of the answers. That makes section 1 and section 2 easier to answer, okay? But when you get to section 3 and section 4, absolutely, there's a big change, so you need to be ready for that, and this is why it's important to practice at home. When you get to section 3, you might hear the answer for question 21 after the first 45 seconds of the audio. So you might hear this 45 seconds after the audio starts. And then you might hear this answer here. I know it's a little bit bright, but you might hear that answer at 55 seconds. So there's only a 10-second difference between those. Okay? So in this case, Roshni, you do have to have a better idea of the next question, much more than in sections 1 and 2. And I think it was Rahul that said maybe I should think about the questions as in sets, like 2 or 3. That's actually quite true for sections 3 and 4. That's what makes them more challenging. So, therefore, it is much more important for listening section 3 and 4 to think about questions in sets of 2 and 3, okay? Instead of going one by one, which kind of works for section 1 and 2. I hope that makes sense. And I know it's challenging, but that is the idea. The IELTS is a progressive exam, so each section is more difficult than the previous. So that's one of the ways they make it more difficult, is you have to have a more comprehensive understanding of the questions and the information. Okay? I hope that helps, Roshni. I know it doesn't help fundamentally, but I hope so. Amrit says, in my exam, she said 3, 4, 5 in one breath. Yeah, it's possible. They speak quick, especially those Brits. Ferdov says, sir, when I listen one time, I get 5.5 to 6.5, but when I listen the second time, I can get 6.5 to 7.5. I mean, I miss a lot of information at the first time. Yeah, for Dov, so again, that's just practice. So being able to listen and understand the first time you hear information. Okay. The question for Dovs, I think, there is why doesn't IELTS speak slower or give me a second chance? And I mean, for Dobbs, I bet if you listen a third time, you might even get an 8 on your answer sheet. Of course, the more we listen, the better we'll do. But logically, the answer here is professors, colleagues, bosses do not like to repeat themselves. So you need to understand information well the first time you hear it. That's the idea for Dobbs. And especially for section 3 and 4, right? Because they're more challenging. Section 4 specifically because you don't have time to review. In university for Dobbs, of course, you don't even see the questions or the information. So you have to take the information while the professor's speaking and write it down. So keep that in mind, especially for those students who are planning to do a master's or a PhD. Remember, in university, you're not just simply listening to the professor and looking at information on a sheet, but you are simultaneously taking notes. That's even more challenging. Okay. So it could be even more difficult on the exam. Okay. All right. Good. Any more questions about the listening section, members? Anything else about the listening section? Any other questions that you're like, I've always wondered about that. I'm just not sure how to do that or what I need to do. I know multiple choice is a very common one. How do I effectively solve multiple choice? I kind of talked about that before. Focus on the question, not the answers. Try to review them earlier if you see multiple choice questions. Alvina, yes, you're asking me a closed question, but that's a good one. So Alvina says, sometimes I can't catch numbers of the phone because they say it so fast. Should I practice numbers more? Yes, Alvina, you should. And Alvina, do you have access to our practice exams? Because you should, as a member, on our website. So Alvina is asking, I can't always catch numbers because they say them so fast. Should I practice them more? The answer is yes. Practice dictation in partners with friends. Absolutely. Okay, Alvina, you have access. Alvina, have you seen the bonus CD in your full course, CD 7? That has numbers, days of the year, months, and so on. I'll show you where that is in a moment. So let me close that one up and I'll darken that up. So I'll show you where you can practice months, days, and so on. Okay. So I don't have my speaker hooked up right now, but here are the audio CDs on the website. And if you go all the way to CD 7, let me see, I'll play one here and put my headset right up to the mic. You have, here, just a sec, Albina. I'll show you this here. So, numbers, there it is. It's CD 7, track 7. Okay. Just give me a moment. I'll, because my audio is hooked up to the thing there. Just a sec, just one moment. Okay. Just give me a second. I really want to emphasize this for you members because this is something I think a lot of students miss on the website. And it is quite useful to just every now and then, once every week or a couple of weeks, go back and review these. Here, let me. Okay, here we go.
5, 6, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 10,000, 100,000, 1 million, 1 billion. Imperial system. Ounce, pound, inch, feet, yard, mile. Days of the week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Okay, so you get the idea. So anyway, CD7 has days of the month, days of the week, imperial system, metric system, months of the year with this native British speaker. So what you should do, Alvina, is listen to that, repeat it, try to copy the pronunciation, And then what you can do is you can write down a series of numbers with a friend, and partners this works well, and letters. By the way, the letters of the alphabet are also included, so A, B, C, D, all that. So you can write down like A, 7, 3, Y, 9, 2, 8, 7, 5. And then you say it to your friend. Of course, don't let your friend see it. So A, 7, 3, Y, 9, 2, 8, 7, 5. And then, it was maybe more Australian than British, but anyway, and then your friend writes it down, see if they match, okay? If they match, great. Then you can do it even faster, okay? So try to do it faster. Yvonne, if you have, okay, Yvonne, if you have membership on our YouTube channel, we can give you a discount. I believe it's a 40% discount to the premium course on the website. So just write me an email and say, I'm a channel member. This is my member name. Please send me a discount to the premium course. And then I can send you the discount, or one of my colleagues, and then you can buy it for 40% less. So we give a discount. We give a very nice discount for people who are members on the YouTube channel. It's one of the perks. I think it's in the perks on the YouTube channel. It says you get a discount to our premium membership. Okay. Yeah, Alvina, exactly. That's why listen to the audio and listen to numbers versus letters. So listen to A versus 8. Okay? 8, 8. There's a bit of a T on the end of that. Okay? Yeah, for Dobbs, just let me know. Members, let me know. If you're a channel member on YouTube, you get a discount to the premium membership. Okay? Amarjeet, that's another really good question. Okay, and I'll answer that as the last question of today. So Amarjeet says, sometimes they don't give me the spelling of a name. What should I do? And that's usually in section 3 or section 4. Okay. So those are the more difficult questions. That's where you need to be more familiar with English. So Amarjeet says, sometimes they don't spell names. What should I do? Okay. The answer is practice phonetics in English. And practice writing down common British names. Like John Smith. I mean, of course, that's the most common one, but okay. Usually when they don't give you the spelling, it's usually a common name like Mike or John, like in the Punjabi or Hindi names like Preeti, Amarjeet. Those are names that we should be able to spell even if we don't speak languages of India, believe it or not. If they're common names, we should be able to spell them. Now, of course, it's a bit easier for me because in Canada, I see a lot of different names from around the world. But you should know that John has an H in it, and Smith ends with a th sound. So you should focus on practicing phonetics. Phonetics means the pronunciation of specific sounds in English, like the TH, the CH sound. Okay, so th, ch, those sounds, so that you can spell names like John or Charlie, for example. Okay. Danish says, how can we remember 500 high-frequency words in just 1 month? Danish, you can't. It's not realistic. Learning 500 words in just 1 month effectively so you can also use them is not realistic. 250, maybe. 500, you have to be a linguistic genius to do it. I've seen it. It's very rare. About 1 in a million students has the ability to remember 500 words in a month where they don't just understand the word, but they can use the word, okay? Because remember, Danish, when you're learning words, you're not just learning to understand them, but you're learning to use them. 500 is too much for an adult in 1 month. A child can do it. A 3-year-old can do it. Their brains are working differently. An adult cannot do it, okay? It's too difficult. 250, maybe. 500, it's not realistic. I've seen very, very few people in my life, of all of my students, actually be able to do that, okay? All right, students, so next Q&A session, which will be in 2 weeks, we'll look at the reading section to cover some of those topics for Q&A, question and answers. So that was great. So this time we covered the listening section. There were some really good questions there, everyone. I'm very pleased with your insights and your curiosity. Again, remember that you can definitely gain a lot of information on our websites, aehelp.com for academic, gieltshelp.com for general. And if you're a member, you get a 40% discount to the premium course. So let me know about that and I'll help you out, okay? I'm here to help you reach your goals and as simply, smoothly as possible, okay? All right, in 30 minutes, we will have a speaking part 3 class with example questions, answer session, and strategies as well. Preeti, you can learn the American accent by copying American speakers. Make sure you focus on one region of the United States or Canada, like the West Coast or East Coast. There are different accents, Preeti, in America as well, so careful, okay? You're very welcome, Alvina. You're very welcome, Roshni, Amrit. Have a fantastic rest of your Saturday. Hopefully see you in 30 minutes. Bye for now.